The chains were cold against Ilara's wrists, but she had stopped noticing the cold hours ago. What she noticed instead was the sound of the palace around her, the echo of boots on stone, the distant crackle of torches, the way the air changed as they passed through hallway after hallway, each one wider and colder than the last. She could not see any of it. She had not seen anything in 9 years. But she could hear the fear in the guards' voices, and that told her more than sight ever could. "Move," one of them said, pushing her forward. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept walking. She would not give them the satisfaction of watching her fall. Ilara's clan was small, tucked against the northern border, where the king's law grew thin, and the wind never stopped blowing. When soldiers found weapons hidden in a merchant's cart passing through her village, the council did not wait for proof of who was responsible. They needed someone to answer for it, and Ilara, blind, unmarked, without a mate to protect her, was the easiest to give away. A punishment tribute, they called it. A gift to King Draven, to prove the clan's loyalty and beg forgiveness for a crime most of them still did not understand. She had heard the stories about the king. Everyone had. Draven, the alpha who took the throne from his own uncle after a war that lasted 3 winters. Draven, who was said to be more wolf than man in his temper, who had sent envoys home in pieces when they insulted him, who kept no Omega in his den because none of them lasted more than a season before they begged to be released. He was not cruel for pleasure, the stories said. He was simply empty, and emptiness had a way of destroying anything that came too close. They expected her to be destroyed by morning too. She could hear it in the pity that had followed her out of the village, in the way the guards would not meet her eyes even though she could not have met theirs anyway. The door to his chamber opened with a groan of old iron. "Inside," the guard said, and shoved her. She fell to her knees on a stone floor that smelled faintly of smoke and pine. Behind her, the door shut, and the lock turned with a heavy click that seemed to swallow every sound in the room. For a long moment, there was silence. Then she heard him breathe. It was not a loud sound, but in the quiet of that chamber, it carried, slow, deliberate, controlled, in the way that told her he was working very hard not to seem dangerous, which meant he probably was. She stayed on her knees, chin lifted, and waited. "You're not what I expected," a voice said at last. Deep, rough at the edges, closer than she thought he would come. "What did you expect?" she asked. A pause. She could hear surprise in the silence that followed, the small shift of weight, the intake of breath that came before a person changed their mind about what they were going to say. "Someone who would be crying by now," he said instead. "I used up my crying on the road here," Ilara said. "There wasn't much left by the time I arrived." Footsteps circled her, slow and unhurried. She turned her head to follow the sound, unable to help it, though she knew he could see that she could not see him. She wondered if it made him feel powerful, watching a blind girl try to track a man who could vanish into shadow if he chose. If it did, he said nothing about it. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked. "Because my clan needed someone to give you, and I was easy to spare." He stopped moving. She felt the change in the air before she understood it. Something sharpened in him, some old wound she had touched without meaning to. "That's an honest answer," he said quietly. "Most people who come through that door tell me what they think I want to hear." "I can't see your face," Ilara said. "I don't know what you want to hear. I only know what's true." Another silence. This one lasted longer. "Sit," he said finally, and she heard the scrape of a chair being pulled toward her. "You look like you're about to fall over." "I'm fine." "You're swaying." She was, though she hadn't realized it until he said so. 3 days of travel with barely any food had worn her down more than she wanted to admit. She let herself be guided to the chair, his hand hovering near her elbow but never quite touching her, as if he were afraid of what contact might mean. For a while, neither of them spoke. She listened to him move around the room, the clink of a pitcher, the soft splash of water into a cup, footsteps returning to stand in front of her. "Drink," he said, pressing the cup into her hands. She drank. It was cold and clean, and she had not realized how thirsty she was until the first swallow hit her throat. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. "You're surprised." "I expected to be thrown in a cell, or worse." The night isn't over yet, Draven said, but there was something almost like humor in his voice now, dry and unfamiliar to himself, as though he had not used that tone in a very long time. They talked. She did not know how it started, or why it continued, only that the hours passed differently than she expected. He asked about her clan, and she told him about the mountains she remembered from before she lost her sight, jagged and blue-gray against the sky, though she could no longer be sure if the memory was real or something she had built out of longing. He asked how she had gone blind, and she told him plainly, a fever when she was 9, the kind that swept through villages and took children's lives more often than their eyes. She had been one of the lucky ones. Everyone told her. She still was not sure she believed them. In turn, she asked about him, though she expected silence in return. Kings did not explain themselves to tributes, but Draven answered anyway, in short, clipped sentences at first, then longer ones, as the night wore on. He told her about the war with his uncle, though he called it something colder. A correction, he said, not a war. He told her about the years since, how the throne had turned out to be a heavier weight than the sword ever was, how every person who entered his den wanted something from him, some favor or forgiveness or place in his court, until he could no longer tell the difference between loyalty and performance. You haven't asked me for anything, he said, somewhere near midnight, his voice quieter than before. Should I have? Everyone does. I don't know what there is to ask for, Lara said. I already know how this ends. Do you? I go back to the cells in the morning. My clan's debt is paid, or it isn't, and either way, I don't get to decide. He was quiet for a long moment. You say that like it doesn't frighten you. It frightens me plenty, she admitted. I just don't see the use in showing it. You've probably watched 100 people show you their fear. I don't imagine it's ever changed anything. Something shifted in the room again. Not danger this time, but a kind of stillness that felt almost tender, though she could not have explained why she thought so. She heard him move closer, slower than before, and then felt the chair beside her shift as he sat down. It hasn't, he said. Not once. They sat together in silence after that, and it was not an uncomfortable one. She found herself listening to his breathing, the way she once listened to the wind through the mountains. Steady, patient, something to orient herself by in a world she could not see. Later, when she rose to find the edge of the room, feeling for the wall the way she always did in unfamiliar spaces, she misjudged a step and stumbled. Before she could catch herself, a hand closed around her arm, steady and sure, stopping her fall. I have you, Draven said. She stood there for a moment, caught between his hand and the wall, closer to him than she had been all night. She could feel the warmth coming off him, could hear his heartbeat if she concentrated, faster than his calm voice led on. I've been finding my way around this room since they put me in it, she said, once she trusted her voice again. I didn't want to ask for help. I noticed, he said. You've been counting your steps from the door to the chair, 11, every time. She felt heat rise in her face, unexpected and unwelcome. You were watching. I couldn't stop, he admitted, and there was something raw in the honesty of it, something that told her the words had escaped before he decided whether he meant to say them. Neither of them moved for a long moment. Then he let go of her arm, slowly, as if it cost him something to do it, and stepped back to give her space. The hours passed strangely after that, quieter, but not distant. He told her about a hunting dog he'd had as a boy, before the crown, before the war, back when his life still belonged to him in small, simple ways. She told him about the songs her mother used to sing, ones she could still remember perfectly, even though she could no longer picture her mother's face. They were not the conversations of a king and a prisoner. They were the conversations of two people who had both been carrying something heavy for a long time and had, for one night, found somewhere to set it down. Near dawn, she heard footsteps approaching the chamber door, several sets, purposeful, the rhythm of guards on duty. Draven heard them too. She felt him go still beside her. That will be for you, he said, to take you back to the cells to await judgment. I know, Elara said, and was surprised by the small ache that came with the words. She had not expected to feel anything about leaving this room. She had not expected the room, or the man in it, to matter at all. The door opened. A guard's voice, formal and clipped, announced that the tribute was to be returned to Holding until the council reached its decision. Draven rose. She heard the change in him immediately, the softness of the night folding itself away, replaced by something harder, something that carried the weight of the throne back onto his shoulders. "She stays," he said. The guard hesitated. "Your Majesty, the council." "The council will hear that she stays," Draven said, and his voice left no room for argument. "She is not going back to a cell." Elara sat very still, her heart beating fast, unsure what to make of the sudden shift in the air, the certainty in his voice that had not been there when he spoke to her. "Draven," she said quietly, once the guard had gone, "you don't have to do this out of pity." "I'm not doing it out of pity," he said, and knelt in front of her chair so that his voice was level with hers, closer than before. "I've spent years listening to people lie to me in this room. Tonight, for the first time, someone told me the truth, without asking for anything in return. I'm not sending that away because a council decided you were a debt to be paid." She did not know what to say. She had walked into this den expecting judgment, expecting to be discarded by morning, as the stories promised. Instead, morning had come, and she was still here, and the king who was supposed to destroy her had chosen, instead, to keep her. Sunlight began to creep through the high windows of the chamber, warm against her skin, though she could not see the color of it the way he could. She heard him breathe out slowly, as if setting down a burden he had carried for a very long time. "You don't have to explain it to me," she said softly. "I'm not asking you to." "I know," he said. "I'm not explaining it for you. I'm explaining it for myself." For the first time since the chains had been placed on her wrists, Elara let herself believe that morning might not bring the ending she had prepared for. Whatever came next, the council's anger, her clan's confusion, the uncertain shape of a life she had not chosen, she would face it from inside these walls, not outside them. Draven did not say goodbye to her that morning, because there was no reason to. She was not leaving his den again.